Hey, recording this video on Friday the 18th of November 2016. It is 6:42 a.m. Chicago time. Hope your trading is going well. Hope you're enjoying the week. And going to do a couple of things in this video. Going to talk about yesterday's trade, Thursday, because it was kind of an odd day with Yellen speaking. Going to have a quick look at the long-term chart and also the charts for the euro and crude, just because there's interesting stuff happening there. Anyway, so let's talk about yesterday, Thursday's activity first. This is the chart. This is the open of Thursday. This is the 11 a.m. window. This is the close of Thursday. And as I said, it was a funky kind of day because Yellen was speaking. Yellen started speaking around here. We had some activity because of her remarks. First of all, her kind of prepared statement, and then kind of questions that she made. It's always going to be a little bit funky when you got kind of major speeches like that kind of going on. The market does listen and react to them. But it's set up for a classic, actually, a 5-step setup on the upside. And we had a setup for some downside weakness. And I actually want to talk about a question I got from Stefan here. This is kind of earlier today. Quick question: would you have passed on this trade? Entry 1351. It's actually a short trade. 1351 is New York time, 1251 kind of Chicago time. Stefan took out 2.5 points on the downside, but his question is, would I have passed on the trade? So let's just go through the activity for yesterday, so from the open. So we kind of continued our strength from yesterday, because yesterday, the Wednesday, was a reversal day. But we had not seen exhaustion buy. This move is not going to be over on the upside until we see that exhaustion buy, and we saw that later on in the day. So Yellen starts her remarks around here. I think they start parsing her statement kind of around this time, because we had a big kind of exhaustion sell signal here, almost getting this move going on the downside, which ended up with another exhaustion pattern kind of down here, a spike reversal. You can see all the blue professional bars coming in at the lows here, lows and lows and so on. So the uptrend is not over because we've not seen exhaustion buy, but all of a sudden we start setting up for a trade to the long side because we've had exhaustion sell, bullish divergence comes in. So that's step one, number one in the 5-step setup. Number two is we're looking for end of trends, supports on the highest time frames and so on. Well, there's not many of those around. Support on the highest time frame does definitely come in. There's no end of trend on the downside kind of coming in here. We're in a little bit of consolidation, and then we start to break up into an uptrend. So first sign of strength. Number three, low risk entry point comes in. Number four, there we go, right on that pullback, bang, and we take off to the upside. So confirmed is when we start breaking again through resistance, and there we go, confirmed uptrend into this move. So I'll tag on my day trade there. I took out 4 out of this. There was probably 6 or so in it, but I was just a bit nervous around these end of trends kind of popping up, so I jumped out too early there. But then Stefan's asking about what about the reversal trade that happens at, let's say, 1251, and let me show you that on the chart. 1251 is there, and definitely some weakness going on. We've had exhaustion buy, bearish divergence kind of come in. We've had our low risk entry point kind of pop up. None of these resistances can get broken, so that's definitely an area where you'd think about going short. But in my mind, it's not going to be a big trade because there's our 11 a.m. window. If the market is not reversed by 11 a.m., then it's not a proper reversal day. It's likely to just kind of try and break to new highs during the rest of the day. And so we break to new highs here. We have this period of weakness, then we break into more strength after the highest time frame support kind of comes in, and we close out the day very, very close to those highs kind of up there. So good for Stefan for taking out 2.5 points on the way down here. Definitely a period of weakness kind of going on, but it's not going to be a strong move because that reversal has not kind of happened pre the 11 a.m. window, so it's not a proper kind of reversal day, and so the market's just going to play around at those highs and test those highs. The 11 a.m. window stuff, it's not set in stone. I always say it's like it's a guide. It happens to work most of the time, not all the time. You will find instances you can pull up charts where it just doesn't work at all, but it is a useful guide, and you should be done your trading by there, because the longer the day goes, the more the fundamental, the news, the information that is driving the market is out in the open and has been priced in. So you get kind of a confluence kind of happening as people kind of agree that this is, by the end of the day, with all the news information kind of released, that we're kind of coming down to some kind of agreement as to what is fair value. Early on in the day, when the news is coming out and things are getting decided, we have far more volatility and ranging moves, trending moves that you can kind of take advantage of. Towards the end of the day, that volatility just shuts down. So I'm always wary of trying to take trades kind of later on in the day. So hopefully, Stefan, that kind of helps understand the 11 a.m. window and why that trade good for you for taking out 2.5 points, but maybe that it wasn't going to be a real kind of big winner because it's after that 11 a.m. window. This is where the 11 a.m. window, it's rule of thumb number 3. We talk about that. Nice little image with Le Beatles. Rule of thumb, 11 a.m. reversals. So if you want to learn more about the 11 a.m. window, there we go. So let's talk about long-term chart, because we're breaking into this uptrend. So this is over the last several days. Where's Trump? This isn't on the chart because the Trump activity kind of happened off here on the left, and then we had the huge reversal when he kind of got in. We've been in this fairly big kind of ranging kind of activity between the mid 2100s and the high 2100s. Question is, are we still going higher? I think we are going higher, and this is my reasoning for it. We've broken above this resistance on the higher time frame here. This has been sitting around for the last 2 or 3 days as a breakout area, and because we've got to a certain distance above this breakout area, then in my mind we're going to keep on going until we put in pullback to end of trend. If you just have a small break above or below those kind of long-term resistance and support levels, you tend to kind of overshoot and then come back in to the zone. But as soon as you've broken above them, as we did with this one with the Trump news here, breaking into this trend move that went pullback, end of trend, we've just been sitting in this kind of rangy activity, and now we've broken again above resistance on the highest time frame. This has probably got to run pullback to end of trend on this highest time frame. Although we've got this kind of exhaustion by bearish divergence kind of come in earlier on in the piece, in my mind we need all 3 things to kind of come together. So I mean, that could just be showing the volume that's bursting out of this ranging activity and getting ready for the next kind of ranging move kind of going. So I'd be looking for that pullback to end of trend on the highest time frame before those things start to kind of top out. So because that's a 4,500 tip bar chart, that highest time frame is the 40,500 tip bar chart. Just people who are kind of using the old indicators, that's kind of the old charts I used to look at. Now for a little bit of fun, let us have a look at the euro and crude, because my word, the euro has just kind of collapsed over the last several days. As soon as the Trump news kind of came out, it's kind of similar to the Brexit news, and I think the euro project is in trouble. We're actually down here at 626, which is below that kind of low. Let me go back, this low area. So that support down there on that pullback to end of trend is at 661, kind of down here. So we could be finding a little bit of technical bounce here, because we've hit that number once, twice, and now we're kind of hitting it a 3rd time. So we might have a little bit of a bounce kind of from there, but this thing is not looking healthy at all. We could not get through this resistance here. We had a spike above it, and then we had all these resistance lines. We came up to them each time. The low and the intermediate time frame could not get through those, and so that was a false break. And then what we started doing is breaking down the supports on the downside, and that's what you're showing here on the trending indicator. And we're in a downtrend. We got to go pull back end of trends and all of those kind of fun things on these kind of daily charts and intermediate charts before things kind of turn around. So that's the euro looking very, very unhealthy. The pound, yeah, it's kind of weak because the dollar is so strong, but the pound's kind of hanging around. it's had its kind of dive off the cliff, and it's finding some areas of support. I think it's sitting around 120 or so on it. But it's interesting that the difference between the way the two are acting at the moment is the pound is definitely stronger than the euro. Crude now. We are trying so hard to hold these levels kind of down here. I know there's some kind of median Doha at the moment, and we're going to get all kinds of fundamental type drivers, kind of agreements or no agreements and blah 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 kind of going on, but we are trying darned hard to hold this thing. We've had our pullback to end of trend on the highest time frame kind of go off. That's this big red dot. We had all of those exhaustion cells, bullish divergence on the lower time frame, on the left shoulder happening here, and then we finally kind of put in this test kind of activity, and we're back down. I mean, a few weeks ago I talked about this when we had a video out called Off to the Races, because that's a U-turn pattern with the professionals forcing it down and then picking it up, kind of anxious there. Now that whole zone and going into that, the lows of that kind of area are really important. We definitely spiked below it there. That was kind of scary, but we're kind of hanging around here. My guess is we're going higher on crude, but it's not confirmed yet. And if you look at the system, we've still got kind of weakness here breaking down. So because we've had this exhaustion cell bullish divergence, we're just trying to find that bottoming pattern there. It's not happened quite yet. We really don't have those signs of strength yet, but I'm hoping for that kind of going forward. I've jumped into OIH that I talked about a few days ago, which is the oil services. I'm also in RSX, which is the Russian index. Been in that for a couple of months now, so I'm pretty kind of wedded to the idea that crude should go up. So I don't know, maybe I'll start to lose my objectivity a little bit on this. I'm kind of hoping rather than seeing real progress at the moment. So we'll wait and see over the next couple of days. Anyway, as I said, hope your trading's going well. I'll tag on that day trade from yesterday on Tuesday, and yeah, good trading on Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. Okay, it's just gone long 78 3/4, long 78 3/4. And I'm not sure if Yellen's still speaking or not. Can't stand her voice, gotta tell you. Anyway, I know this is kind of an odd setup, but I've gone long. The reason I'm going long is we didn't have an exhaustion buy pattern to reverse this. Here's the beginning of the day. We kind of crept higher. I was in, ooh, that's interesting. A little bit of data burst there. I was in long earlier on. I only took a point out of this because I moved my target out, which is fine. And then we kind of sold off. But this thing hasn't topped off with a proper kind of exhaustion buy pattern, and we're still really coming up from this reversal that we had yesterday. Exhaustion sells, bullish divergence kind of comes in here. Yeah, we had exhaustion buy here, but that's at the end of the day. That's kind of a bit of a nothing signal there. We've kind of continued on to new highs, and we had some initial profit taking with this exhaustion sell kind of going on here, and that kind of almost like the volume that came out here got picked up down here, a bit of a V reversal, and yep, so there we go, good. So this weakness that we had, we've now had the first sign of strength with a break above intermediate resistance. Hopefully we'll break back up above lowest time frame resistance, and that'll trigger us into an uptrend here. But until we have that exhaustion buy, this is not going to roll over. All that was some initial profit taking, and now we've got rid of enough volume in order to kind of go the other way. So that's hopefully going to close above resistance here. And you can see that spike down, exhaustion sell. Now we've set off on the other side. But he triggered an exhaustion buy on the 4500, but that's potential getting us going, to get out of this kind of zone that we're stuck in at the moment. So although pullback to end of trend is kind of a bit of a funky pattern, doesn't really kind of jive with the exhaustion buy bearish divergence that ought to have happened with that type of a move. So that's why gone long. So see where we go next. No, just out 82.75 44, which was the original target. Just got this blue fresh up bar here on the 1500, kind of got me a little bit nervous, and then amateur up bars kind of reaching up here, and we're under end of trends exhaustion buys. So I suppose this will go pull back end of trend on the 500, but it's just a little bit too rich for my liking. Anyway, that's okay. It's kind of slow during bits of it, but we got there in the end, so that's kind of good.